Hola Cheeseheads, estamos de vuelta en un nuevo episodio del podcast GoPackGoMX, el podcast de los Packers en habla hispana y la voz oficial de Packers México. En este episodio, como ya habrán podido leer en el título, tenemos un invitado en verdad muy especial. Esta no es la primera vez que hay un invitado de Estados Unidos, pero sí la primera vez que el invitado solo habla en inglés y por lo tanto, aunque el podcast es de los Packers en habla hispana, esta vez el episodio será totalmente en inglés y estaré subtitulándolo, así que por eso solo tenemos versión en video de este episodio. Para quienes no conozcan a nuestro invitado de hoy, daremos una introducción sobre él, pero quiero compartirles que este invitado es muy especial, ya que para mí es una de las personas más influyentes como alguien que cubre y habla de los Packers en redes sociales. Por lo tanto, para mí ha sido un privilegio poder hacer esta colaboración, así que espero que disfruten este episodio y me ayuden a difundirlo lo más posible. Sin más que agregar, vayamos directo a la charla que tuve con Aaron Nagler de CheeseheadTV. Well, Cheeseheads, here we are with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Aaron Nagler. For the people in our audience who don't know who is Aaron, because maybe don't follow Packers content in English, since we got you covered in Packers Mexico and GoPackGoMX, I'll give you a brief introduction. Aaron, it's the co-founder of the big blog and YouTube channel CheeseheadTV, where they are devoted to Packers fans worldwide. Aaron has been working in the past with multiple renowned sport media outlets such as Bleacher Report, Sports Illustrated, Barstool Sports, and PackersNews.com, part of the Green Bay Press Gazette, where I saw him for the first time. He's a graduated actor from the North Carolina Schools of the Arts, and now he streams daily in Cheesehead TV YouTube channel, and very recently achieved a huge milestone of making the blog profitable and a profitable endeavor. So big congrats to you, Aaron, for that, and welcome to GoPackGoMX podcast, Aaron. I'm thrilled to have you here to talk about the Packers, and I had the chance to meet you in person a couple of years back, and I had to tell you, he's the nicest dude. Even in the freezing cold, he takes time to say hi to people. So I really had to make this happen as an episode in the podcast. So welcome, Aaron.
Wow, I really appreciate it. Appreciate your thoroughness regarding my past as far as where I've come from. I am honored to be here. I cannot tell you, when you emailed me and we're talking about the potential for an appearance here, jump at the chance, man. I love talking to Packers fans who aren't in the United States, who aren't in Wisconsin. Those folks are great. Obviously, we cater to them. We are all about Packers fans wherever they are, but I have a very special place in my heart for anyone who doesn't live in Wisconsin, doesn't live in Green Bay, but certainly anywhere outside of the United States. That's diehard. I mean, most of the NFL and the Green Bay Packers is catered and kind of targeted towards an American audience. But I know that there are literally thousands, if not millions of fans all over the world. Really love being here with you. Thanks you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate it. And I had to do my research, man,
Well, you did very clearly.
Yeah.
Well done.
No, but also, and also like you said, this is bigger than what the NFL sometimes realizes.
Sure.
So yeah,
I think they're starting to, right? I will say, like, obviously they have a very big international push now, but even then it didn't feel like they had truly kind of embraced it and realized it until the last couple of years. I will say, being down in Brazil last year really opened my eyes as far as where the kind of the reach has gotten and how diehard fans are, even outside of the United States. As diehard as any NFL fan can be, you certainly find it anywhere in the world. That's what I love.
Yeah, totally. And the push is from, like, seems corporate, but the because I think the whole environment, it hasn't embraced it. Like players don't enjoy the.
They couldn't push if there wasn't something organic there, right? You know what I mean? Like, as far as anything the NFL is doing, they're reaching out to these other areas because they know there's a very growing, budding fan base there. So yeah,
True.
that's what the fans have done. It's not if you guys weren't there, the NFL wouldn't be pushing to have games in Mexico City, right? Have games in Sao Paulo. Like they wouldn't even bother with it. But because there's a very real growing fan base, they have certainly started to pay attention.
In Mexico, we have been here for a long time. That now we are
Yes.
glad that the eyes are turning on to us. But all right, let's jump right into it, Aaron, because I have a bunch of things to talk with you, and I would like you to introduce yourself a little bit because I'm not sure if everyone in the audience knows who you are. I would like to. I know this story because I have heard you telling it a bunch of times, but
Right.
I would like to ask you. This is a regular question in the podcast. How did you become a Packers fan?
My earliest memory in my life is going to see a Packers game when I was 3 years old with my grandfather who had season tickets. It was just a random, I think it was early October, Sunday afternoon at back then in the 70s. The Packers only played noon games. But yeah, grandpa took me to a game, and it's the first thing I remember in my life. I mean, my earliest memory. I was 3 years old. And it's just been something that's always been a part of myself and my family. Like my father watching the games, listening to them on the radio every single week. I was obsessed as an early kind of part of my life. Every team, every player, the pictures, like back then, obviously, there was no social media. Hell, there was no even real kind of day-to-day coverage. I was obsessed with everything, with every player, every coach, every game. So it's just always been kind of part of it, part of my life, part of my family. And yeah, I think my family being so into it, my dad and my grandpa being so into it, that just kind of naturally happened for me.
Totally, and how privileged of having that first memory, and
It's crazy. Yeah.
also what it's crazy. And what's your I mean, this question may have been answered previously,
Mm.
but maybe you can pick a different memory. What's your favorite memory as a Packers fan?
Yeah,
I think
no.
you have a bunch.
Yeah, there are a ton, right? But I don't really, there's no question. As far as obviously my earliest being with my grandpa, that's a big part of my life. But my favorite, as far as being a Packers fan, obviously 1996 and the Packers winning the Super Bowl for the first time in my lifetime was amazing, and I'll never forget it. But I got to admit, when the Packers won the Super Bowl in 2010, and I was with my daughters, that to me was like everything. As far as like exactly what I'm talking about, like how I became a fan. And my daughters aren't big Packers fans. They're very not interested in sports, not interested in the Packers, but they were very interested that day. They knew it was a big day to me. And Corey, my co-founder, had gone to Dallas for Cheesehead TV to cover the game, but I stayed home because I wanted to be with my kids when the Packers won the Super Bowl, and I got to experience that. So for me, that there's like you said, there are a bunch, there are a ton of memories that I could cite, but that to me is like holding them after they won, after Aaron Rodgers takes the knee, like, and just embracing my girls. That's it. That's my favorite Packers memory.
That's huge because also it bonds with what you said about how big this is part of your family too, right?
Yes.
Even though your girls are not interested in football,
In
it's
any way,
being
shape,
part
or
of it,
form.
but
Right.
it's a family moment,
Right.
right?
Yes.
It's important. So now going into this year on the Packers, this year we have one of the biggest events in the city of Green
Yes.
Bay ever, and you
Not
were
one of
there.
the biggest ever, like without question. It's not. I
Okay.
was asked this a lot leading up to the draft, and it's not close. This is by far the biggest event ever in the history of Green Bay, no doubt.
Oh, and it makes perfect sense. I have been there, and it's a really small town, so I
Yes.
cannot imagine how they made it to fit so many people. So, how
Yeah.
was the vibe around Lambeau during draft week?
Yeah, it was amazing. I will say, like it. I don't think anybody knew what to expect. It was very kind of okay. Here we go. What is going to happen?
Uh-huh.
And I will say what's fascinating to me is that around the stadium, yeah, there was construction, right? There were road closures, and sure, it was a big corporate event, and there was a lot of it was a big footprint, a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people every day. But what's weird to me is that like even you could just go a couple blocks away and it was just another day. It was just could have been any other day
Yeah.
in Green Bay. But if you were involved with the draft, if you wanted to be at the event, it was a huge party. It was a big monster party. And that to me, what's incredible to me is if you read the coverage, there was one arrest off of 3 days. All 3 days, 600,000 people. There was one arrest in the entire time. I think that just speaks to what an amazing vibe and town Green Bay is, right? And like the idea that everyone was just there to have a good time. And it didn't matter if it was a Packers fan, which most of the people were, but there were fans of all the teams,
Oh.
like Vikings,
Mhm.
Bears, whatever, Detroit. But there was no animosity, there was no fighting. It was just fun. Like, yeah, there was teasing and whatever, but the vibe, I was so proud of the Packers, of the city of Green Bay, of Packers fans, because it was just a celebration of football. And I think that was, I'm not going to say surprising because that's kind of how it is anytime you go to Lambeau on game day, right? Like no matter, even if it's a Vikings game or a Bears game, it's still fun. It's still inviting. It's still okay. We're going to have a good time. I did wonder all 32 teams if that was going to continue to be the case, and it was. It was just electric, and it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Another reason to love Green Bay, Wisconsin, right?
Yes,
So
100%.
I would also like to ask you, how important do you think this was for the franchise and for Mark Murphy's legacy since he's on his way out?
Yeah, it's huge. I think it's the kind of crown jewel of everything he's done. And I understand there are Packers fans who will never really kind of appreciate what he stood for or was as a steward of the franchise and bridging everything that was kind of prior to his arrival towards whatever ed policy does going forward. But just the creation of Titletown and making Green Bay, Wisconsin, again, by far and away, not just the smallest market in the NFL, but the smallest professional sports market in North America, period. The ability to keep that going, to the ability to make sure that that's a going concern for the next 2 decades and beyond. That's his legacy. And the draft kind of put the exclamation point on that of, yes, we can do this. Yes, we're the smallest market by far, but we can still do anything and everything the NFL requires. And look, it is a bit, bittersweet that it took to the last moment of his tenure, but I kind of love the idea that that's the final kind of thing we'll probably remember of Murphy's tenure in Green Bay, and it is very much due to his doggedness and making sure that it happened because the Packers got passed over a number of times in the course of the last 5-6 years where it started to maybe look like it wouldn't happen while Murphy was still in town. I think the NFL did right by him, and I think the Packers did right by the NFL. And I do think, yeah, it's great that Murphy gets to kind of go out on this high. It's appropriate.
I agree, and maybe some of our audience doesn't realize, but the ones that have been lucky enough to be there, I cannot imagine that place without Titletown. So
Right.
Titletown, I mean, I went with my wife, and she had we had a really great time as a casual visitors of the city, right? So
Nice.
I cannot imagine how this place, how Green Bay is without Titletown. The same way I cannot imagine how Lambeau would be without the atrium, right? It's
Right.
some those are legacies from the
Exactly. Yes.
presidents that
100. Yes. Bob Harlan and kind of creating the renovation in 2003. That is certainly his kind of capper of his legacy. And yeah, you're right. 100%. Titletown will forever be part of what Mark Murphy kind of left for Green Bay. No doubt.
totally. And what do you think this such event will ever be repeated in Green Bay ever?
What's funny, if you'd asked me that prior to the draft, I would have said no chance, right? But now I got to admit, I think probably, 8, 10 years down the line, I think they'll do it again. It was such a success. The
Mm-hmm.
second most kind of watched draft ever, right? The second most attended draft ever. I think there's no doubt now they've got proof of concept. It's a football mecca. The idea being there's
Mm-hmm.
so many people who probably still, even this time around, didn't get a chance to go and now see what a success it was and what a great vibe it was, who were probably like, yes, if it happens again, I'm absolutely going. Yeah, I think, like I said, prior to the draft, I would have said this is a once in a lifetime. But now I think there's a decent chance it happens again,
Depends on
albeit
policy, right?
a ways down the way.
Oh yeah, yeah. It will, and also will depend on that policy how good he
No doubt.
does, right?
Yes, sir.
Um,
True.
Now changing gears into a different topic, the top one of the main hot topics in the off season, Jair Alexander. I know nobody
Right.
knows. I know everything
Nobody
is gossip,
knows.
but
Right.
what should we expect from about the Jair situation? More information has surfaced, so maybe
Yep.
things have changed.
Maybe. It's still very tricky. Um, we know through Matt Schneidman of The Athletic that Jair was offered a restructured contract. I'm surprised it took this long. I'm surprised that it took this long for them to make that gesture. I'm surprised it took this long for maybe the Packers to make that move. But I don't think it changes much because I don't expect Jair Alexander to say, oh, yeah, sure, fine, great. I do think this is somewhat expected. I would have thought, again, it would have happened earlier this offseason. But we know through other reporting, through Tom Silverstein's reporting, that the Packers were in talks to trade him and we're going to trade him. But Jair wouldn't agree to a restructure of his deal for another team. So why
Mhm.
would he, unless, of course, if he's hell bent on staying in Green Bay and thinks, yes, I'm going to make my money in Green Bay with whatever restructure they've offered. And we don't know what that is. Now, the assumption would be something along the lines of we're going to pay you if you play, right? Thinking it's tied to his actually playing because he's missed so many games over the course of the last 2 years in particular, but really the last 3 years, he just hasn't been on the field. But if you're Jair Alexander, I can imagine him sitting there going, well, no, I'm going to get paid regardless. If you can give this to me, fine. But there's nothing that says he's going to say yes to the restructure. I said, and it's just guesswork. I'm just guessing. I don't know anything, but my hunch is he doesn't say yes, and that they will end up cutting him. I really do. Look. We're recording this now, June 3rd. It's Tuesday. We're a week away from mandatory minicamp, right? Next Tuesday, June 10th. That's a real interesting date because that's when he has to be in Green Bay. He hasn't been at OTAs. He wasn't there today, wasn't there last week, but he doesn't have to be. It's voluntary. He has to be there next week or else he gets fined. So next Tuesday, that's an interesting date to circle because if he shows up, then I think things get interesting.
And has been reported he is planning to show up. So I
Yep.
mean, it still will be a big unknown. It will depend on you. Like, would you rather have him back or get rid of him with the current circumstances, with the current contractual circumstances?
Right. I would like him back. I love Jair. I love what he brings to the team. I made a video months ago saying don't give up on Jair Alexander just yet, simply because he's such a force when he's out there. There's so much better when he plays. The problem is he doesn't play. And
Yeah,
so I understand the Packers' frustrations. I understand the Packers' frustrations from the point of, man, we keep, this back half of last year, he keeps practicing but never playing. So at some point as a defensive coordinator or as a head coach, you're drawing up these game plans with the idea that he's going to play and then he doesn't week after week after week. Yeah, I understand. Maybe you're a little frustrated by that. But I think they're a better team with him. I don't think anyone could say otherwise. So there's a chance. There's absolutely a chance. Cooler heads prevail. Maybe they decide, okay, we can't live without him. I don't think anyone can sit here and say, if he's on the team, their chances of winning a championship are better. And
totally.
that to me is what it should be all about. But sometimes that's not what it's all about. We'll see.
Yeah, the business is rough, right? Now,
Yes.
talking about next week, so speedball this to me, like which are your top three positional battles you're looking forward
Mm.
during this off season?
I mean, it's all to me the big number one thing is what happens along the offensive line. And that obviously plays into the whole Elton Jenkins situation. Elton, who's also not been in attendance for OTAs because of his contract situation. I suspect he'll show up next week because he doesn't want to get fined. I love the idea of him moving to center. I love Aaron Banks at guard. I am fascinated to see what happens at left tackle. Rasheed Walker has played really well over the course of the last 2 years, sitting down there in place of David Bakhtiari.
But seems like we don't want to pay him, right?
You don't know. I mean, you would suspect, yes, they're going to pay Zach Tom, right? That would be what we would expect to happen. But you never know. I mean, who knows? If they don't pay Zach by the time training camp starts, then all bets are off, and we'll see how the season transpires. Maybe an injury occurs. You never know. I would suspect, though, yeah, Jordan Morgan has been battling for that job. He ran with the ones today at left tackle, but he also ran at right guard. But I think my suspicion is they would really like Jordan Morgan to win that job and to have Rasheed Walker be their swing tackle, to be their backup at left tackle and right tackle, and then let him walk in the offseason because you cannot pay Zach Tom. You just paid Aaron Banks. You're going to have to make a decision on Elton Jenkins. You can't, I think, turn around then and pay Rasheed Walker left tackle money because that's the other thing. If I'm Rasheed Walker, I want to get to the market. I want to get to free agency because we've seen some really, I'm not going to say bad, but not all pro or even Pro Bowl tackles getting some serious money. And if I'm Rasheed Walker, if I'm Rasheed Walker, I'm playing it. I have really good tape, and I'm probably going to put a bunch of other really good tape on out there in 2025. I want to go to the market and get paid big time tackle money, which is probably not going to happen in Green Bay.
And it's his only chance.
Yes.
And he might price himself out of Green Bay if he does that.
He's a former 7th round pick. Think about that. The idea that, he was somewhat of an afterthought and then came in there week 2 after Bakhtiari couldn't go and just has locked it down and has been excellent, has played really well. But they used a 1st round pick on Jordan Morgan. That can't be ignored. And they're giving him first team reps again and again and again. Like I said, I think they want Morgan to win that job, and they'll have Rasheed be their swing tackle and then let him walk because they'll get a compensatory pick if and when he signs a deal someplace else. And I think that deal will be pretty rich, and that will help their comp pick.
Yeah. And which other two, very quick, are maybe less in your list, but you will be watching closer?
I mean, you have to think about what happens at nickel, right? The kind of slot position on defense. I know Nate Hobbs has clearly played a lot of slot, played a lot of nickel throughout his time. They keep talking about how he's going to play on perimeter on early downs and then maybe slide in. But that's what Javon Bullard's done, right? Through most of his rookie year. I think you've also seen Gregory Jr. come in right away off the street and at least run with the ones. So I think that's something where if you get to camp, you absolutely want to see how that kind of unfolds, right? I do think Nate Hobbs ends up winning that, but you never know. And then on the other side, on the offensive side, I think wide receiver is going to be fascinating. When you talk about, I think Romeo Doubs you're clear, he's set it and forget it. Jordan Love absolutely trusts him. You know what you get with him on the perimeter. He's going to play, right? But then opposite that, or even in the slot, it could be any combination. It could be Matthew Golden, who we saw out there today. It could be Dontavian Wicks. You could even have Savion Williams start to get snaps. And then you talk about, okay, who's doing all that orbit motion stuff, right? Who's doing the kind of horizontal stuff? That could be Golden. That could be Reed. It could be even Savion Williams. I think Mecole Hardman could 100% be kind of the, maybe I don't want to say a gadget guy, but a more horizontal, get him in space, let him make it work. But I think Hardman becoming a part of that rotation depends on his winning a punt return job. And we've seen him today. He was with the punt returners, though he didn't last week. But yeah, so that to me, that whole mix, how does that rotation work, right? How do they determine? Because we know over the course of the last 2 years anyway, when they go 2 wide receivers, right? And they've tried to do a lot of 2 tight end stuff, but Musgrave hasn't been able to stay on the field, so they've gotten away from it. But if Musgrave's healthy and they're running a lot of 2 tight end, you've only got 2 wide receivers out there. And Reed's not a guy that they like to put out there on the perimeter. That's just not what they if it's Golden, if it's Savion Williams, if it's anybody, it could be Dontavian Wicks, but anybody opposite Dobbs, it's probably not going to be Reed. So that to me, like that's a fascinating battle that we'll have to wait until we get there in the summer and the pads come on and they start working. But yeah, those are probably the highlight for me as far as the battles of guys like trying to jockey for position or playing time. Those are the ones to watch.
Totally. So just, I know you have a limited time, so really quick, let me ask you something about which aspect of the team do you anticipate will improve the most from last season to this season? Because, I mean, I wanted to ask you also about the record prediction, but that it's nonsense.
We're so far
we
away.
never know.
Long way to go, right?
Yeah.
I will say the area I think they take a big step forward in is third down offense. It's somewhere they really struggled last year, especially in the passing game. It was really disjointed, and I don't think it was any one thing. I think there were protection issues. I think Jordan Love's injuries really played a part there. I think the wide receivers really did not progress the way they wanted them to, and that's why I think it's not a secret. That's why they have like 12 wide receivers in the camp right now, right? They're trying to breed competition there to try and get the best out of that position group. But I do think this is a group, and that's an area, third down offense. Obviously, the drops were a major issue last year, but even outside of that, just spacing issues, guys not being in the same spot where Jordan Love expected them to be, Jordan Love being healthy, being able to move. I think third down offense is something where he was absolutely killer in 2023. His completion percentage, his ability to move the chains, the big playability, that was all there. You didn't see anything close to that last season. They really, like I said, kind of stubbed their toe there. I think that's something where they take a big step forward in 2025.
Totally. So just for letting you go now, and this is a kind of like hard question, but I want to know your thoughts on it. So what do you think needs to happen for the Packers to play again in Mexico? Like, according to Google Gemini, the Packers are the fifth most popular team in Mexico, in probably the second largest market of the NFL. I'm pretty sure we are the second largest market in the NFL.
Right.
And we represent about 7% of the whole NFL fandom in this country. But as a Mexican Packers fan, I think the franchise, the Packers, has deliberately ignore this fandom or this market maybe.
Interesting.
And is more prone to look
feel
at
that like as Mexican Packers fans, do you feel that the team has ignored you?
I think my feel is they are more prone to the European market. These licenses that give to different countries, and they pick up Germany. And I don't know, like there's very I feel there's reluctancy of and it's kind of understandable due to the context of the team, right? The smallest market and how representative it is for them to play home. But I don't know. That's kind of like a feeling we have.
I get it.
Am I accurate, or am I maybe out of touch here?
I don't know. I don't think you're out of touch at all, because your feelings are valid. Whatever you're feeling is what you feel, and there's a reason that's happened. Maybe it's some things the Packers have done or not done that have drawn you to it, but they're valid, right? I do think it's obviously complex and there's a lot going on there, but I will admit I have been beating this drum for a long time. When we went to Brazil last year, I went to Brazil last year, I asked the Packers if they were going to be doing anything. And like as far as events, right? Like meetups, whatever. And they did do obviously some stuff in London. They did meetups and what have you. But because the Eagles were the home team, they didn't, they said the NFL asked them to kind of stand down. The Eagles could own that space, blah, blah, blah. I say that to say there's conversations and things happening behind the scenes that we're not privy to. Because I thought, the Packers are playing in Brazil. I know there's a huge Packers fan contingent in Brazil, right? So I assumed the Packers would really lean into it, but they were asked by the league not to. So all of that to say, sometimes it may seem like they're maybe forgetting about you or not paying attention to you. I think it's on their minds. I think they haven't appreciated their international fans nearly enough. But I will say, I think the London trip really opened their eyes, because I do know when we were in London, the response and the way that people showed up they were not expecting it. They were not. I'm not going to say they weren't ready for it because I think they were, but they were a tad surprised at how strong and visceral and just emotional a lot of the Packers fans were. And that was from all over the world. That wasn't just European. That was everywhere across the globe. I met people. We did a meetup in Soho for Cheesehead TV. We met people from South America. We met people from Australia. We met people from India. It was a chance for international fans to gather. I do think there's definitely going to be a moment where the Packers do end up finally playing in Mexico City again. And I don't think the Packers are kind of ignoring it, but it is part of an NFL rotation, right? Like every 4 years, they're going to have to play overseas, mandated as a home game, right? But even outside of that, at some point, they're going to have to play on the road as an away team again. And I think there's a good chance that between those two potential matchups, something will occur where they go to Mexico again. But like I said, I don't want to say that you're wrong because like I said,
and maybe
I get it. I feel the Packers being pretty insular until recently. In those last couple of years, they've kind of started to get it.
No, and it makes sense why they look at the European market more because they already test the waters there. But just to give you an example, there's a huge, gigantic fandom of the Steelers here, and they do events for fandom here. Yeah. They acknowledge the fandom here. They have an account in Spanish. They have a lot of stuff like that. They acknowledge this fan base, and I think the 49ers does too.
I know the 49ers do. Yes.
So there are bigger fandoms than the Packers, but we are just the fifth. So, I mean, that's why I feel
one thing that you should hope for is that Ed Policy, the new president and CEO, understands exactly what we're talking about here, and I think he does. Like, I don't doubt for a moment that's a guy who has run a league. He's run a sports league. Like, he was the head of the Arena League here in the United States for a number of years. Like, he understands, I think, a market beyond just what's kind of presented locally. Like I said, they've done amazing things under Mark Murphy in Green Bay, but they were very insular. I'm hoping that with Ed in charge, there's much more of a kind of a worldview and an understanding. Again, like we talk about at Cheesehead TV, there are Packers fans worldwide. And I do think the Packers, like I said, have started to kind of open their eyes there.
Yeah. So, Aaron, I can express enough gratitude for taking the time to talk with me in this podcast. Although the podcast is usually in Spanish, this was the first episode fully in English. Amazing. So I hope it's the first of other collaborations we could do with aspiring and passionate people like yourself or so I'm really, really glad that we had this conversation. Please tell the audience where they can follow you, where they can find your great content. And probably most people already know, but for the ones who don't.
The best place to find us is on YouTube, youtube.com/CheeseheadTV. You can find us at CheeseheadTV.com. You can find me on Twitter at Aaron Nagler. I really appreciate the time. I really appreciate the invitation to come and chat Packers with you. And look, next time you and your wife or whoever are coming to Green Bay, let me know because I will be there and we'll have a party. It'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. We are planning to go again this year. Well, she bought some snow boots and she told me the purchase was already there, so there's no chance you deny me to. So maybe we're going this year.
I love it. Well, let me know, and I'll be there. It'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. Man.
Thank you. Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go. Y bueno, Cheeseheads, espero hayan disfrutado el episodio tanto como yo haberlo grabado. Si fue así, por favor, regalen un like. Recuerden suscribirse al canal y dar clic a la campanita. Seguirnos en nuestras redes sociales en @GoPackGoMX y @Packers_MX para todo el contenido relacionado a los Packers. Y hasta el próximo episodio. Go Pack Go.